So you've seen them, right? Those sleek electric cars gliding down the street. You hear all this talk about saving money on gas, saving the planet, but then you see that sticker price. And you gotta wonder, is an EV really cheaper than a gas car when all is said and done? Well, let's dig in and find out. This is the big question for so many people looking for a new car right now. You hear all these promises, but hey, it's your hard-earned money on the line. You need the real numbers, not just a sales pitch. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to break down the true cost of owning one of these things, way beyond just what you pay at the dealership.
To really get to the bottom of this, we're going to follow a real-life example. Let's meet Mike. He's a high school math teacher out in Denver, and he's stuck trying to decide between a brand new Tesla and a new Honda. And as you're about to see, the initial math is, well, it's a bit of a shock to the system.
And here's why. Right off the bat, he is staring down a $12,000 difference. For a teacher like Mike, that's like half a year's salary. It's a huge gap that would make just about anyone slam on the brakes. But then he got a piece of advice from a car salesman that kind of changed his whole perspective. And that right there, that's the secret sauce. This one little sentence shifts the entire conversation. It's not just about what does it cost to buy it today. It's about what is this thing going to cost me to own and operate for the next 5 years? This is where the real story begins. Okay, so let's follow that advice. We're going to start by really decoding that upfront cost, because that scary $12,000 gap, it's not exactly what it appears to be. There are all these government incentives designed specifically to make this math look a whole lot better for EV buyers. For Mike, living in Colorado, the incentives are, well, they're massive. You've got a $7,500 federal tax credit plus another $5,000 rebate from the state. You add those up and, wait a minute, that's $12,500. The Tesla should actually be cheaper than the Honda, right? If only it were that simple. Okay, and here's the gotcha moment. This is where so many people get tripped up. Because these incentives, especially that big federal one, they come with some really important fine print. You gotta understand how a tax credit actually works. So what on earth is tax liability? It's actually pretty simple. It's just the total amount of federal tax you owe the government for the year. A tax credit is awesome. It can wipe that bill all the way down to zero, but it can't go below zero. You don't get a refund for the rest. For Mike and his wife, they only owed about $6,500 in federal taxes that year, so they could only use $6,500 of that credit, leaving $1,000 of it on the table. So once we factor in the full state rebate, which he got, and the actual amount of the federal credit Mike could use, that $12,000 gap shrinks all the way down to $5,000. Okay, still a difference for sure, but it's a heck of a lot less scary. Now, let's see what happens when we start driving these cars every day. All right, now we get to the fun part. This is where the whole EV argument really starts to pick up speed. Because over 5 years, all those little savings on things like gas and maintenance, they start to add up to some seriously big money. And just look at this. The difference is staggering. Based on how much Mike drives, about 16,000 miles a year, and the local prices in Denver, he'd save almost $1,400 every single year, just by plugging his car in at home instead of stopping at the gas station. That is a massive recurring win. And the savings just keep rolling in when you look at maintenance. Think about it. No oil changes, no spark plugs, no mufflers. The electric motor is just so much simpler, which means way fewer trips to the mechanic. For Mike, that's another $700 a year, on average, that stays in his pocket. There is one cost that usually goes up, and that's insurance. You know, since EVs have a lot of high-tech, specialized parts, like that giant battery pack, they can cost more to repair if you get in an accident. And for Mike, that worked out to be about an extra $300 a year. Okay, this is it. It is time for the final showdown. We've got the real upfront cost, we've got the daily running costs, and now we need to add one last super important piece of the puzzle. What's the car actually worth after you've driven it for 5 years? Resale value is kind of like the epilogue to your car ownership story. It's the money you get back in your pocket when you decide to sell it or trade it in. And obviously a car that holds its value better ends up costing you less in the long run. So we're going to subtract this from all our expenses to find the real, true cost of ownership. Okay, let's lay it all out. You can see the whole 5-year journey right here. We start with those adjusted purchase prices. Then let's add 5 years of fuel and whoa, just look at that enormous difference. Then we add in maintenance and insurance, and for the Tesla, we have to add that one-time cost of installing a home charger. But now here's the magic trick. We subtract what he gets back from the resale value, and the final totals are, well, pretty shocking. After all the math was done, for Mike, in his specific situation, the Tesla Model 3 would actually save him more than $6,700 over 5 years. The math worked. That initial $5,000 premium he had to pay, it was completely wiped out by the long-term savings with a lot of cash to spare. But, and this is a huge but, that was the math for Mike. His situation is not everyone's situation, and whether an EV is going to save you money really boils down to a few key things about your own life. It really all comes down to these things right here. Where you live is a huge one. That changes your state incentives and how much you pay for electricity. How much you drive, obviously, that directly impacts your fuel savings. And having access to home charging, that is a total game changer. And, like we saw with Mike, your personal tax situation can completely change the numbers. You tweak any one of these and the final answer could totally flip. So to make it easy, here's a little checklist you can run through for yourself. If you can answer yes to most of these questions, then the financial case for you getting an EV is probably really, really strong. But if you're answering no to a big one, like being able to charge at home, then you know what? A good old gas car might still be the smarter financial move for you right now. So you see, at the end of the day, this whole thing isn't about whether EVs are cheaper in some abstract sense. It's a personal math problem. The numbers are already working out for a lot of people, like Mike. And as the tech gets better and cheaper, it's going to work for more and more of us. The only question left is, have you run your own numbers yet?